Right, good morning, everyone, and welcome to our budget meeting, February 6th, 2025. So we're gonna deliberate the 2025 budget today. And I'm gonna call the meeting to order. Start off with the land acknowledgement. We respectfully acknowledge that the township of Havelock-Belmont-Methuen is located on the Treaty 20 Mississauga territory of the Mississauga and Chippewa Nation, collectively known as the Williams Treaties First Nations, which includes Curve Lake, Hiawatha, Alderville, Sugog Island, Rama, Hosolay, and Georgina Island First Nations. Township of Havelock-Belmont-Methuen respectfully acknowledges that the Williams Treaties First Nations are the stewards and caretakers of the lands and waters in perpetuity, and that they continue to maintain this responsibility to ensure their health and integrity for generations to come. So next is a moment of silent reflection, and we'll take a minute for silent reflection to reflect on the community that we represent. Okay, I'll ask everyone to make sure your cell phones are off or placed on vibrate so that you start the meeting. And declaration of continuing interest, if it arises, you can declare it then. So with that, we'll move into the business of the day, and we're going to start off with Lionel with additional information. So welcome, Lionel.
Thank you, Chair. Through you, the report that we're bringing forward sets out the various changes that were made during the first budget meeting by council. If you go to page 5 of the package, it shows the changes made to the operating budget. We have 4 listed there that brought the residential tax rate increase to down to 4.2%. And if we flip to the next page, it lists all the changes made to the capital budget and what reserve those changes impacted. And we also have in the report, starting on page 6, but continuing on page 7, a chart that shows the net tax levy impact of various scenarios with respect to increasing transfers to reserves, which was requested by council for their consideration in finalizing the budget.
Okay. Any questions for Lionel? All right, then. So we did really well at the last meeting as far as moving things around. The one thing that I had asked you about there, and I'm not sure if this is a spot where we could do it, but admin reserve had $25,000 in it it's been in there for the last 4 or 5 years for a coverall building. And it seems like that's kind of something we don't need anymore. Like they're using the Midtown property for what it was supposed to be for. So I just wonder if that could be moved out somewhere, or what the process would be to move it possibly into something. It's in the admin right now. I don't know why it's there, but maybe it could go into like a capital somewhere, like facilities or something. I know there's always something for facilities that it could be used for without hurting the tax rate. So I don't know what your thoughts are, Lionel, on where we could put that.
Through you, Chair. So originally, when the coverall capital project was approved, it was approved with the money coming from the admin reserve. So it's not technically in a reserve by itself, but the 25,000 was going to be taken out of the admin reserve. So if council so chose, they could delete that approved capital budget and transfer $25,000 from the admin reserve to the facilities reserve.
Deb, go ahead.
Yes, through you, Mayor Martin. Could you please clarify the 25,000? I'm not understanding.
So
that is.
It was quite a few years ago, with all the equipment outside and things like that. I brought forward a motion that we put $25,000 out for a overall building. And through the years, it hasn't been used, and it doesn't appear that it's going to be needed now. So rather than it sitting in the admin reserve, I just thought it would be good to get it out of there and use it somewhere that would be more useful. Facilities has a lot of things going on that, you know, and I'm just suggesting facilities. I mean, it could go into the roads, capital, but just to get it out of the admin reserve, it's just sitting there right now, not being used. So, okay. Yeah, Deputy Mayor Webb, are you done?
Actually, through you, Mayor Martin, that really didn't answer my question. What is the $25,000? What was that reserved for?
It was a coverall building to be put up at Midtown, to store equipment in.
To build a building?
A tent, like one of those coverall tent buildings, yeah.
All right, thank you.
Okay, so it's been in there for about 4 or 5 years. It's not needed, so.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, yeah, I agree, it's something that we can move on from, I think. I just had a question around, not really arguing about facilities, but I know maybe, which of our reserves, I know you referenced, I don't know if it was at the last public meeting, but the Parks and Rec reserve was pretty low too, so it would be better facilities at Parks and Rec. I'll leave that to Lionel, but I remember that our Parks and Rec was getting pretty low as well, so.
Through Chair, they're both quite low, so I think it would be, it's kind of like council call.
We don't want,
I'll leave that to the treasurer then to make that decision, so.
we'll have to make the decision, so if you want.
To make that recommendation.
I'm just throwing out the suggestion, I can't make the motion, so if somebody wants to move that, we'll move that 25,000 to the facility. To the
Facilities, Lionel?
Through Chair, I think facilities reserve is quite low, so that would make some sense to top it up.
Yeah. It's moved by Deputy Mayor Webb that we move the 25,000, second by Councillor Doherty. Any questions? All in favor? That's carried. Okay. So anyways, with all of these changes here, is there any questions for Lionel around these? Okay, so we can, you want to see this report then about that part, or you want to just do it?
I'll just ask Treasurer, any more motions required?
Through Chair, if council is okay with me moving on to some housekeeping items. These are just changes that we need to make because things like assessment, we got the final assessment after the books were printed, and there isn't a whole lot of material changes here. In fact, the 4 items that we need to have motions on, they result cumulatively in a 0.2% decrease in the tax rate down to 4.0. So if I could start with the first one, starting with the 2025 taxation year, MPAC has added a new class for properties that are deemed to be related to aggregate extraction. So for the draft budget, we had assumed that their tax ratio would be 1, which means they would have the exact same tax rate as residential. But the province finalized it at 1.2555712. So by changing this to what the province has enacted, there would be a decrease of 0.1% in the residential tax rate.
Questions? Lionel?
Are we on this sheet or are we?
No, I'm just looking, what sheet is that, Lionel?
Future, this isn't a cheat, these are just housekeeping items that have come up and I'm just, they're not in the report, it's all.
And so what do you need for that then?
So a suggested motion would be that the tax ratio for the new aggregate extraction class be set to 1.255712. And that's on the page that has the tax ratios for HBM is on page 146 of the budget document.
Sorry. Okay. All right then, so, so the suggestion is to, adjust the aggregate.
It's.
Yeah.
Okay, so we just make a motion to support that?
Yeah.
Moved by Counselor Doherty, second by Counselor Clement, all in favor, and that's carried. Okay. Anything else, ma'am?
Yes, through your chair, and Councilor Doherty made a good point. A lot of these are essentially, the way it is in law, and it's just basically just cleaning things up a little bit. The second one is we received our insurance bill, and it's $9,084 less than anticipated for 2025. So a suggested motion would be that departmental insurance costs be decreased to the actual amount billed for 2025, resulting in a decrease of $9,084 to HBM's net tax levy. And this change, once again, would decrease our residential tax rate by 0.1%.
All right then, so adjust the insurance allotment then? Adjust this year's, what was in the book?
Yes, that it's spread throughout the book, so I didn't provide a page number because there's a whole bunch of different departments involved, but the global effect would be $9,084 decrease.
Okay. All right then, Counselor Doherty?
So what does that bring the increase on the insurance for 25?
Through chair, the increase would be 17%.
Okay, so adjust the 9,000. Okay, so somebody you want a motion for that then, Lyon?
Yes.
Okay. Moved by Counselor Clement, second. Counselor Doherty, all in favor, and that's carried.
So if I just keep going with these little tiny changes, the next one is assessment related, once again, moving to the final approved assessment by impact. The final assessment for the village area increased slightly from what was forecast. So with a $547 increase to the transfer to the village road reserve, the village area tax rate would remain unchanged from 2024. So a suggested motion would be that the assessment of village properties that being Havelock be adjusted to the returned roll for 2025, and that the transfer to the village road reserve be increased by $547, so that the village area tax rate as presented in the 2025 budget review book remain the same as 2024. I know that's a lot, but essentially it's $547 and it doesn't affect the residential tax rate, the general one. And just for interest sake, that's on page 150 that the village tax rate was calculated.
All right then, if you want to move that. Moved by Counselor Doherty, second by Counselor Clement. All in favor? Carried.
And one last housekeeping item, we found that our massive shredder in the mailroom is coming to end of life. We've looked into capital expenditures for an industrial shredder, and we're looking at I'm thinking around $15,000, maybe more. So the old one is not working consistently and essentially is too aged to be fixed. So the proposal would be to have 2 shredding bins instead of the machine, which would be a lot better in terms of confidentiality and the management of documents. And of course, it would take much less staff time that could be reallocated to doing other things. The yearly cost for the service would be estimated to be about $2,250. Mathematically, that doesn't change the tax rate, how rounding goes. It would still be at 4.0% increase. So a suggested motion would be that the administration materials and supplies budget be increased by $2,250, to account for the addition of shredding boxes to replace the current high capacity shredder that is at end of life or something of that nature. And that's on page 19, that amount.
All right. Council? Council Clement?
Sorry, just clarification. So that's the big trucks that come in, they pick it up and they shred it on spot.
Yes, so I don't know if you've ever seen it, but they put it in the side of the truck and it's these industrial grinders that grind up a whole box, and they guarantee that the confidentiality of what you're shredding is going to be maintained and. Yeah.
Dr. Flyger, go ahead.
To you, Mayor Martin. What is the lifespan of the industrial shredder that we have in here? And cost wise, compared to getting a truck to come and shred the machine, compared to buying just a new machine to do it ourselves?
Through Chair, the cost being between $15,000 and $20,000. So with an average life, I would say, quite honestly, I wouldn't put it much past 10 years. I mean, in theory, if you're paying $2,000 a year, you could save a little bit of money, but I think what we're getting in terms of this would be not only the fact that a lot of time is spent feeding paper into the shredder, and I think a lot of businesses, especially handling sensitive documents, are going to this because not only is it less time that can be used towards other things, but it's also a guaranteed sort of destruction, and the confidentiality aspect is getting so important these days that I think that's why the whole manual feeding of paper is just becoming maybe a thing of the past. It's possible it could save a little bit of money, but I think we're thinking overall it would be better to have the boxes that we just put the paper in and it gets shredded. There isn't any extra to be paid for the trucks to come. That's included in the rental of the bins.
Through you, Mayor Martin. So then the cost per year would be?
The cost per year is $2,250.
Council Doherty, go ahead. Yeah, she's done.
Through your mayor, is that a fixed fee for in perpetuity, or is it annual, or what's the term?
Teacher, though, that wouldn't definitely be fixed for any length of term. I'm assuming that, like other providers of that sort of service, it would be subject to the market increases. So yeah, it's entirely possible that it could increase. And quite honestly, it wouldn't be a massive change for us to buy a machine when this one does come to the end of life. It just in the balance of analyzing the situation, that would be what we would recommend. But if council so chose to continue on and go with the machine, you know, it wouldn't hurt our operations at all.
Any other questions? What's your thoughts on? Go ahead, Doug.
Through you, Mayor Martin. Okay, so the documents are being picked up in a box and then that company is shredding those documents. So is there some sort of confidentiality agreement? Because they're looking at those documents and they're shredding them. I mean,
You Chair, they actually don't. It's an amazing thing where they can literally put a banker's box into this side compartment and it just grinds it into tiny pieces.
and that's box and all?
I've seen that. Now, I don't know exactly what their trucks do, but they don't actually go page by page like we did. It would be like a high capacity, put it into the shredder, it grinds it up. So they would certainly have confidentiality aspects to the contract, and nobody would be taking the time to look at anything that's being shredded.
I didn't.
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
You're first.
Okay, go ahead, Kathy.
So just a comment, I used it at
Lights are too close together.
Turn your volume down. Turn your volume down.
What here? I took it off. So in my previous job, we used it and it was quick. Like it was so much easier. I had a big blue bin, you just dropped it in. And then for our business at home, we used a smaller version of it. It's quick, it's handy, it's fast, and they don't look at it all. They literally don't. And it's done right there in front of you. So anyways, that's just my opinion.
Let's make a motion that we go with the treasurer's recommendation.
Jerry's next.
Oh, I'm sorry, Jerry.
No, it's all right.
Apologize. I didn't see it blink.
No, I was going to make the same.
Just with the thought, I understand that the numbers are close in terms of whatever, but I think it's better just for us to get away, if there's anything that we can rent and have other people take care of, especially when it comes to warranty, and if something goes wrong with this machine, the better. So I think we're gonna end up saving money here by going this way instead of, right?
Jerry?
Well, there's no contract, so if we don't like it after a year, we'll just buy a new shredder. What's ventured, nothing gained, so I second your motion.
Thank you.
Okay, so I'm going to say.
And just to add to the conversation, we have in the past used this service. We use it once every 4 years after election. And we are mandated by law to discard all the election materials, including ballots. And we have used the service successfully. They do come, they take the bin, they dump it in the truck, and everything is shredded. And then everybody signs a document that confirms that it was done properly and it's been shredded properly.
Yeah. So. Okay, so we have a mover and a seconder. All in favor of the motion, and that's carried. Keep going on.
Through you, Chair, that's all the housekeeping items that I had this morning.
Okay, so one thing I have here is the report, to receive the report from the treasurer here, motion to receive everything. Moved by Kathy, second by Art, all in favor? And that's carried. Okay. So next time, we have some highlighted areas in our package here from follow-up from the last meeting. If you wanted some more information. So the first item on here is the economic development capital overview. Barry?
Through you, Mayor Martin, the purpose of this particular report is to provide council with information regarding dual engineering streetscape design. Remember, we refer to it as Downtown Revitalization Initiative, as well as to provide updated costing options. I'm going to go into rather the background. So you remember, as of our last special budget meeting, we received questions as well as feedback in terms of what was presented in the CIO and clerk's report to council, and there were certain decisions made. I'm just going to highlight those decisions. To forego the interlocking concrete sidewalks, that's the crosswalks, to forego the tree plantings, as well as the tree protection that rates at the base. I have noted to forego the stone flower bed raised edging. And there were a number of questions that were posed that required clarifications. I'll quickly go through those. What are the material differences, the pros and cons associated to the rubberized finish on the asphalt pedestrian crosswalks versus the colorized paint finish on the asphalt? And Pat Schick was good enough to provide some input. First of all, he explained that the term rubberized is actually incorrect because it's not a rubberized, it's actually a thermal element that's imposed. He goes on to say the material is not actually rubber, but a material that is a more of a flexible coating. It's a stamped effect. So if you look at the drawing on page 10 of this report, excuse me, page 11 of this report, which highlights the streetscape, you'll notice at the crosswalk, there's that impression That's actually, and if you look at some of the pictures that were provided in the diagrams of his presentation, it will look like brick, but it's that thermal stamping effect. It is a more involved process, hence the rehabilitation of it. So the lifespan for that particular finish, he's estimated it's 5 to 10 years. There's only a one-time sort of reapplication option with that. It requires for that, let's say, second reapplication, sometimes it's as simple as sandblasting, other times it might be grinding effect. It's roughly half the cost for that second reapplication. For the straight paint, it wouldn't have the stamping effect. It wouldn't look like brick. It would be a straightforward colored paint for that area. Again, it has a 3 to 5 year lifespan. It is easier to reapply in that you kind of clean up the edges is the language he provided. You simply go with additional paint. Does anyone have any questions in terms of those two? I'll keep going.
Bev's got a question here.
Yeah. Through you, Mayor Martin?
Yes, through you, Mayor Martin. I guess my understanding, I wasn't understanding the trees and the flower beds. But now seeing this diagram, they have the flower beds on the corners. And then there is a pole, there is 2 hydro poles that are on the road. Now, obviously, we're staying where they are. And then, because it's just more of a detailed thing.
Yeah.
So when you go to, maybe I'm ahead of myself. So at the beginning, it shows the 3 options. And 2 and 3 don't have these flower beds and trees planted, correct?
Through you, Mayor Martin, that's correct. If you're looking at the diagram on page 11, there are a few things I'll just point out. I've highlighted where the wooden poles are, so just to give people reference.
Yeah.
There's the flower planter in front of the seniors. The planter would be removed as per your last discussion. If you move to the east, it's noted as Royal Page. It now is Ange's Place, just again, a point of reference. The 2 trees that are sitting where there is a parking space today, they would be removed. And if you go a little bit further east towards the actual crosswalk, there is a raised flower planter there. That too is an option to be removed. I hope that helps.
Yes, thank you, Sherry. That does help. So through you, Mayor Martin, I think if we want to revitalize this town and do the George Street, and if we're taking away trees from, and like the flower, I think that this picture that the company has come back with, I think that's awesome. That's going to stop people from parking on the corners for one thing, and parking in front of the seniors building as well. I don't know. Thank you, Sherry.
Okay, so yeah, and the 2 things that I see out of your thing there, and the rubberized thing clarifies things like for a length of time. I think we all want to see us do the most we can with this while we're doing it within reason. So the lights on the south side are pretty important to me, and the something with the intersection, whether it's rubberized or painted. It looks like the rubberized lasts longer than the paint. You gave a good example of lifespan, and there's a lot of documentation here, but those are the 2 things that I'm looking are in there. At first, I was looking at option 3 there, but there is some things there that I'm not really stuck on. It's just whatever we can do to
Further to that, like the question, I understand the lifespan, what's the cost?
yeah.
So
I understand it's shorter time frame, but I mean, it would only be a couple $100 to do the painting, whereas it might be thousands to do the rubber, I don't know how much this rubberized stuff
Yeah,
costs.
it's a big, so it was 60. You want to answer it, sure, there
Through you,
you.
Mayor Martin. So I've drilled down further
Mhm.
with Pat to understand that. He shared the following. The cost noted are the examples of impressed asphalt, so that's stamping effect. It's a brick type pattern. It's molded into the asphalt. Material costing is placed on top of that. It's a heating aspect and pattern stamping that drives up the costs. Excuse me. Turn my page over. Alternative option, should they be desired, would be to forego the pattern and to simply apply solid color. They applied paint. So he goes on to explain, similar to the above, if they completed in the stamped brick pattern and pending how much abrasion is evident, the asphalt may require a restamp to refine the pattern. If this were to occur, he expects a rehab cost of approximately 50% to 75%, depending on the intensity of the damage. Usually the thermoplastic and rubber material still has some life and as such only requires a thinner overlay. So if it was the 65,000, he estimates roughly 50%. That gives you an idea when you go through the reapplication process. So if the lifespan was 15 to, let's say, he's using quite a large range there, the 5 to 10. So if you had a lifespan of 10 years, you're looking at every 10 years from approximately 35,000. Again, for that stamped material that gives that much more aesthetic impression, because it's a style, it will look like a brick pattern. One of the takeaways or the pros is that after the second application, the third will likely be more intensive rehab, and that too might drive up the cost to the 75% factor. So,
Through Mr. Mayor, I think I'm familiar with it, but I'm just, are there any other towns like ours that use this? Like, I think I've seen it, but I think I've seen it in bigger, like cities, Peterborough, Toronto.
through you, Mayor Martin, I asked the same question to see if there was a local community I could direct you to. He explained that oftentimes when you're in a community, you will see the stamping effects in the crosswalks. If it is, let's say within 1 to 5 years, you would think it's brick. Like you would probably walked over that materials, but certainly it's being applied across municipalities within Ontario. He didn't provide me with specifics, but he said you've likely walked through a crosswalk with the stamped material thinking that it's actually brick.
I was just wondering, because I'm figuring that maybe other communities such as ours have found it cost prohibitive, right, in terms of going this way. So was asking. Thank you, sure.
Okay, any other questions for Terry? Carry on then, Chair.
Thank you. I'd just like to hit these points because it will help with the decision making. So a couple of points: elimination of the concrete interlocking sidewalks. So you remember, we're doing away with the actual blocks and bricks. The question posed to me was, does that affect the actual curb design? Does that add additional cost in terms of the concrete? And Pat confirmed that the designs of the curbs, as well as the concrete materials, are all embedded in our our George Street reconstruction project. So he said it has no material impact on this estimate. The other point, when we talked about the raised flower bed, there was some confusion because the original drawings provided by Pat were very small. But as you can see, the examples that I have, again, on diagram 1A on page 11, when the roadway juts out slightly, it slants out at the intersection sections, is where that planter is. It would have to be maintained, of course. These are narrow walkways, just to keep in mind. And I just highlight that there are, I think in his original estimate, I'd have to go back and look at it again. How many did he had 50. Now that's meters in terms of the raised bed edging, to give you an idea. We keep going, removal of the one flower planter in front of the seniors. Once you remove it, just beyond it, you'll see a gray line. That's actually a concrete bench. And that concrete bench, even if you remove the planter, is still sitting in a parking spot. So that's something to bear in mind. You will lose a parking spot if you leave the parking bench there. Removal of the 2 trees in front of 4 George Street West, which is Angie's place. By removing those trees, his recommendation is to adjust the angle of the slope that comes out into the intersection slightly to allow you 1 full parking spot there.
You would still have the jut out, but just it wouldn't be.
And when you approach it, my concern was that one would look a little lopsided. He said it wouldn't be obvious to the eye. Placement of the decorative lamp heads was in the original estimate. So the lamp heads were, having seen pictures in the original presentation that Pat provided, they're not a bad looking lamp head, but they're sticking on a wooden pole up high. And having spoken to him about some of the earlier projects, the concern is when you place that decorative lamp head to the top of the wooden pole, it actually draws your eye up and you notice more all of the wires that are there. The aesthetic that that lamp head brings to that pole is marginal. Drawing hydro from the, one of the questions was, when we draw hydro to place the decorative light poles on the south side of the street with the luminaire, which is the lamp, the question is it more cost effective? Is it less materials time if the power ran from, let's say, the Patterson Parquet, where there would be some electrical hookup to run along the sidewalks versus coming across from the north side? Pat explained that it's all in the planning of the project. If the plan is placed at this stage of the game, he said there's no material advantage of doing it on the south side, but he said it's not his call. It's actually the hydro engineers that would lay that out. If we were to take it from a hydro hookup, he explained, from Patterson Parquet, it would mean a transformer, just to bear that in mind. I presented the original cost, just so that you have that for comparison. That includes everything that Pat presented to us. And we've included one additional line at the very bottom, which is the decorative streetlight poles with luminaire. That's the lamp, including the wiring. There would be 6 of those on the south side of the street, as per the instructions. Option 2 and option 3. Option 2 is having your decorative light poles on the south side of the street, as well as the decorative lamp head on the top of the wooden pole. It does not include the stone flower bed edgings that we discussed. It does, however, include the more decorative stop lines, the garbage cans, the one concrete bench in front of the seniors, bear that in mind, and of course, those poles that I mentioned. Option 3 is doing away with the decorative lamp head on the wooden poles. And I apologize, I didn't note in option 2 is that I had included that thermal stamping or rubberized effects. Option 3 did away with the brick stamping, if you will, and went with straight paint, including, of course, top sign, garbage cans, and no cement bench there with your light poles. And the fourth option is a variation that works for you beyond what we've proposed here. If we go to the recommendations now, they are option, I mentioned what the options 2, 3, and then 4. We're looking for a resolution in terms of the decisions made. And one of the things we would ask you to do is give thoughts to the type of decorative lamp and light, if we're moving in that direction. So if we could not only decide on the options, those are, but also to give some direction in terms of a top-mounted decorative pole or a side-mounted would be helpful.
Go ahead.
Just your last comment there. Thanks for the pictures, because they're all nice and gives us a wide range here to choose from. I kind of like your suggestion here, Sherry, in that the 2 you've listed have the banner arms already on them. So I mean, if we're gonna put banners along George Street like we do along the highway, that would be
Through you, Mayor Martin, the banner arms are an option. They're very low in cost, so any of the lighting options could have them. Just
they can be out.
Can be,
Okay,
yes.
thank you for that. The other thing was, sorry, just on the diagram, we're dealing with obviously Oak Street to Quebec Street here. Is there any streetscaping down towards the post office?
Through you, Mayor Martin, to clarify, the 6 decorative light poles extend right to the post office. So that's kind of the scope of project would be from Quebec across to where
The sidewalks, the corners, there's gonna be nothing on this corner here towards the sidewalk, like.
You'd have the jut outs, as you see there in the curve design.
Yeah.
You would have, depending if you go with that brick stamping effect or painted effect on the crosswalk, you'd also have decorative gas can, or I want to say gas cans, forgive me, garbage cans and stop signs.
So pretty much everything we've got on this corner here would be replicated on this corner. It's just on, okay, thank you very much.
Kathy?
So through you, Mayor Martin, sure, the seniors already have a bench at there Are you gonna take it away and put another one somewhere else, like in that vicinity?
Through you, Mayor Martin, that's a great question. There is an existing bench sitting in front of the seniors today. So if you're familiar, there's a slight sloping ramp that comes up to the front door, and beyond it is a bench that's there. So you'd have a bench facing a bench if you were to leave the cement bench in the parking spot.
So, okay, Lionel, go ahead.
Future, I just want to make sure that everybody is on the same page with respect to was in the budget originally and what was decided at the last meeting. So the original budget for the project was 374,500. And at the last council meeting, council deleted 168,750 for the interlocking concrete sidewalks and 14,000 for the tree planting. So as of this moment, there is $191,750 in the capital budget for this project.
So there's a lot of details. Thank you for that, Lionel. That's what I was gonna say. It's like, you know, whether that's the number we leave it at, but for today, if we were to set a number of 150 or whatever, looking at these numbers, or leave it to 190 in there, we have allocated as far as all the details of what we're gonna look for. As long as we have enough money in there for today, we can work with that, or you can work with that and bring something back, but the council has to be, we should give you what we're comfortable with. And like I say, the two things that I don't care if it's stamped or painted or whatever. My big thing is I'm hoping the intersection looks nice all the way around the four corners and the decorative lights on the south side. All of the other things there, you know, I don't know what council's priorities are, but that's just all I've seen from the original thing. And these pictures are really helpful. You know, we want it to look nice, but within reason. And I think the cuts that we did last time really, I think were good. And there might be some more, these lights, like to get into the details of the lights, from what I've seen with the lights and how narrow the road is, the ones that hang out are not an option. The trucks will be taking them off, going if there's nobody parking on the side of the road. It's just a narrow road. I had the experience this morning. So those details, I don't know whether we need them today. We need them before very soon. But for today's budget, we need to make sure we have enough in there. And like Lionel says, you were doing just those things there by your 65,000 and whatever. If we went to the premium stamping, I think we have enough in there.
You're pretty close at your 201.
Is it?
Option 2 here.
Mhm.
So that's pretty
Okay.
close. That's with the rubberized stamping too.
Oh,
So
wow. Okay.
I don't know
Is
if
there-
everybody's comfortable with that or they
Through you, Mayor Martin, can I just a point of clarification? If you're looking at option 2, which is the 201, I'd like to draw your attention to the lamp heads on the wooden poles.
Yeah.
It was a point that was discussed with Pat, having a decorative lamp on a wooden pole doesn't achieve the aesthetic that you're looking for. It draws the eye up to the wires. So if
thank
there is a goal, perhaps that comes off to achieve a round number that works for you.
Yeah, like, so you got the amount right now though, like you're saying, those, if they were to come off, that would probably put it down into what we have there already. Pretty close to what we budgeted for last meeting,
what
taking the lights off the wooden poles, like the decorative lights off the wooden poles, just leaving the ones on the south side. Like Sherry's saying about the drawing your eye up to the wires, they kind of work against what we're trying to do here.
oh,
So that what we have in there right now sounds like it's pretty close. Maybe it's not enough. How much did you say, Lionel, is in there right now from after last meeting?
Through you, Chair, the amount that's in that capital project right now is 191,750. So council so chose, we could increase that to, for instance, the amount listed in option 2 of that chart to 201. It wouldn't be a large change, but made council feel more comfortable.
or I don't know if everybody's comfortable because that's got the rubberized. So I mean, if we
Yeah.
switched out the rubberized for the paint, right?
Exactly.
You can take 30 off that. You'd be down at around 170, right, Lionel? Okay.
Through you, Mayor Martin, I'd like to see the flower planters and trees planted for that north side Especially if you're not gonna put the decorative poles up there, because I think I mean, that looks awesome. I can actually see that.
I agree with Councilor Flagler here in terms of, we're gonna do this, let's do this good, right? I don't wanna overspend, I'm not trying to get that out there, but
Yeah.
I don't wanna just throw up and have a whole bunch of people come back at us and go, why didn't you do A, B, and C?
Exactly.
I agree with something being over there, Councilor Flagler. I'm looking more at the stone flower beds, the raised beds. I'm just concerned about the trees in terms of their growth and the constant work for our
Yes.
crews over here in terms of trimming them and possibly, Mayor Martin referenced the light poles already hanging out on the street, so we're gonna have the same issue with these trees.
Okay, yes, and I agree with the trees, but you can get nice trees now that actually flower. And they're small, you can trim them up top, which I don't think that's a problem, but I think that type of a tree would be beautiful. You can get those willows that leap over,
Yeah,
you
So
know.
how about if we went with option? I guess it'd be, I'll use option 2, right? But we switch out the rubberized crosswalk for the paint. That saves us 30, and then with that 30, we can add in the tree plantings, the vases and the flower bed.
So for today's,
Is that?
though, if we were
I know
to
where
set
you're
the
coming
200.
Okay, yeah, with the number.
You got enough work in there to do all of, you know, what you want to do, and if anything, there should be more than enough with the 200 in there to, you know, and we'll have to do it sooner than later, but for today's budgeting purpose, if we went with Lionel's recommendation of putting it to 200 from the 196.
Bring a proposal to the next meeting.
Yeah, okay,
Pretty much right. Just one more question was, I know the issue we had there was around in terms of hiding some of the wires and whatnot. So we have the numbers for the street lights and whatnot, but have we figured into if we need to get rid of some of these wires and if there might be a cost of that in terms of burying them, or to the mayor's point, when we try and move the lighting to some of this lighting to the south side, is there an added cost, or is that all figured into these numbers?
Through you, Mayor Martin, I'm just going to remind folks that was part of Pat Schick's presentation late November to actually take all of the wires subterranean. It was adding, I think it was 1.5 million of the whole project. So no, it was not included in any of these estimates. Yeah.
to bring a wire, just to, okay.
To remove all the wires in that section.
No, I understand that was complete, but I mean, in terms of just bringing, like you said, a couple.
We need a wire across for the,
To your Mayor Martin, all of the wires for the south side lighting will be subterranean. There will be no lighting, like no wires cast between poles. It is, yeah,
Okay,
absolutely.
that's
It's
all.
embedded in the cost.
Okay,
Forgive me, yes.
thank you.
I'll just highlight there for the last line item, including the wiring. And again, that will carry under the street.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
so the motion is, Lionel, like the 200.
Yeah, through you, Chair, I have an increase of 9,250 to bring it up to the 201.
All right, so that'll give, and then we can work on the details of it. So, okay, so Deputy Mayor Webb is moving that we raise that up to 201. That is under for now. Second by Councilor Clement. Any other questions around that? All in favor? And that's carried. Okay. All right. Travis, well. Fighting to get up here. Get her. Yeah. Okay. Okay, so building department overview, some follow-up things that you had from the last meeting.
Start with the sewage system maintenance program, action program. Morning, Mr. Mayor, members of council. As per council's request, I prepared a report with respect to the sewage system maintenance inspection program. The report includes attachments such as the draft letters that would go out, questionnaires, inspection sheets, and statistic sheets. The Ontario Building Code outlines mandatory areas for sewage system maintenance inspection programs. HPM is not, as you know, not a mandatory area, but it's discretionary, but can be made mandatory by way of bylaw from council. appreciate that all of council had time to review the report and reach out to me and ask questions. So I thank you all for that. Just a couple of things to touch on that aren't necessarily clear in the report. So the financial stuff, so that in addition to the students' wages, that sort of stuff, there will be additional staff time incurred by Sonia, myself, and those aren't added costs in there because we don't track our duties, such as I don't put down that I spent 2 hours a day on planning and 4 hours on building and an hour on bylaw, an hour on septic. So there will be additional time for Sonia, myself, and maybe some admin for any mailings as well. A couple options in there on how we would implement the program. So the focus of the program could be simply to the goal to catch the ones that are environmental health issues, such as the old steel tank, pipes leaking out on the ground, that sort of stuff. If you wanted to step it up to the point where we were opening tanks, we would probably want the owners there for that, open the tank, do an education with them. You'd be looking at levels, outlets, lines, condition of concrete, sort of stuff. That's not the way that we did the report. It was more so just the visual inspection on site without opening tanks. Thing that Leah mentioned this morning, that the newsletter actually won't be going out in the tax bills until June. So we would have to just revise the way we do a QR code in the February. Once they go out, so we would probably put our letter in there with the QR code that would link it to the questionnaire on the website. And happy to answer questions.
Okay. Council, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you very much for the report, Travis. Very well done. My one question would be, can you reference it there? I'm kind of leaning more towards let's go after the bad guys here. So the ones we know that are bad, and the rest of them maybe try and limit this exercise to an education kind of exercise. I use exercise twice, but it's obviously something that's been thrown in our lap here, and that we're going to have to address even more so going forward. But just at this opening stage, as I said, I don't want to start kicking down people's doors or propping open their tanks. I don't think we're at that stage yet. I think it'd be good for us to, as I said, kind of ease into this and with an education campaign, maybe newsletters, whatnot, let people know what's coming. But at the same time, still, as I said, the really bad offenders, right? We can take care of them because that is under our purview now. So I don't know. That's just my idea. As I said, I don't want to open up the floodgates here and, have us. I think it's kind of the same strategy we took with our bylaw in terms of, if we know it's bad or we see it, then obviously, but let's not go looking for problems. So I think that this would be kind of the same outlook, at least from my vantage point. So, yeah.
Okay. Comments? Go ahead.
Through you, Mayor Martin. I agree with some points that you made, and I believe that our environment is a very important piece. And the septic should be looked after, but we need to be very cautious on how we proceed to do that. And it should be an equal. So if, a neighbor on the 6th line gets, so does the neighbor on that. Like, it's an all an equal thing. We're not out to get anybody, but they need to be aware that we are going to start this program. Whether the cost we charge for it or not, that would be up to us. But I feel that it is an important thing. And yes, I know also people that are a little bit, you know what, I'm going to end my conversation. Anyway, thank you. Yeah,
So, Kathy, go ahead.
Do you remember? So Travis, because I'm a firm believer in this because I am right about it. How many other townships are mandatory? We're not, but how many others are? Like, it's a going thing that at some point it's going to become mandatory for us?
3, Mr. Mayor. I do not have that number in Peterborough County. None of them are mandatory in Peterborough County. Just their source fire protection areas are mandatory for us. That's
so the education side of things, like, I think like the deputy mayor said, like, so right now to throw this program in right now is about $44,000 to add to the budget. If we wanted to go ahead with this, if we wanted to go ahead with starting the process, I think like Councillor Flagler's saying, the education side of it, it's coming. Like this has been around a long time, and there's, for every person that's for it, there's a person against it. But that being said, we want to look after our lakes, and I don't think anybody here doesn't want to look after the lakes and the township. So it would be a township wide thing, I think, is how it would roll out. But for today's discussion, in fact, my first newsletter that I got requested, they want to know where we're at with this for an association newsletter. So they're all watching, and now that we've taken it in-house, it might put a little more pressure on us. But the thing is, I want to make sure we do it right when we do it, because there is repercussions if you do implement this program, and then there's some issues. That's the other side of it. We got to deal with that too. So, or somebody's got to deal with it, and it's going to put a lot on everyone. So I just want to make sure we do it right. I'm not trying to ignore this thing, but Gary, you had your hand up.
Yeah.
Oh,
Thinking about it.
okay. Art, go ahead.
Yeah, sorry, 3 minutes. Right. So Travis, just when you talked about in terms of, you asked us how we want to do this, if we just wanted to do the bad ones first or do everybody kind of, how do we, like, do we have a method of identifying which ones are the bad ones? And sorry, like, I don't know this, but how do we do that? Like,
Really, we wouldn't identify the bad ones until we were on site. We can do an inspection of, like, let's say, for example, council mentioned Jack Lake at the last one. So if we were going to do Jack Lake, it would mean questionnaires, letters go out to everybody on Jack Lake, and then we would do the inspection. The ones that are in compliance and stuff, they get the pass and away they go. But we would then capture those bad ones that we could do without actually being on site.
so say,
Difficult, yeah.
through you, Mr. Mayor, so say we send a questionnaire out, do we only go to the places that respond to the questionnaire, or do we do everybody?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, we would still do everybody.
Yeah.
One of the draft letters in there, I think, was the follow-up for the questionnaire that we would want that questionnaire back. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
So yeah, like I don't know how to, like, I know years ago when we first talked about this thing, I had suggested then, and it wasn't a big thing because properties weren't moving. They stayed within the family. So, but I had suggested then that it should be a part of the house sale, that they should have done a house, it should be part of the house inspection when you sell your house. And if they had done that, probably 50% of the township would have been done through selling your property. Now, I don't know if it would, there's still lots of properties turning hands. At that time, everything stayed in the family. The cottage didn't move. It just stayed there with somebody within the family. So it wouldn't have been as effective as it would have been the last probably 5 or 6 years. There's been a lot of turnover. So I don't know what the fair way of doing this is, but Councillor Doherty, go ahead.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I just a question for the person that recommend, like, moved the motion. What was behind, what was your impression as to how this was going to roll out? Because I'm finding it very interesting, and maybe you could just elaborate if you're prepared to. If not, it's fine.
So to the best of my ability, I received a request from a taxpayer on one of the lakes who is quite concerned about septic leaching into the lake. I agreed I'd look into it. That's the premise when I looked at this. I'd still like to see something go forward. If you want to defer this and start with education, I can accept that. But the whole thing is it came from a taxpayer and who is concerned about the environment and her lake.
A follow-up question, if I may. I'm with you. Septics are a problem, environment's an issue, and I couldn't agree more that we need to address it, but how we address it is important, I think, as Deputy Mayor said. For my time, education's a start. We start in 25 educating. It's going to come to a theater near you. It's just a matter now, or if you go with the program that has been recommended, I would just like to know what council's position is when Travis does the first letter and nothing happens. Travis does the second letter and nothing happens. What is council prepared to do after that? Because there's no sense of having an inspection program unless we're going to execute the bylaw that we put in effect. And just to make a comparison so that you have some benchmark, it's the same water that's going in that we had a policy on George Street, made a policy. They didn't want to pay 600 or whatever the number was. So we made a policy, we reversed the policy. But now we're saying, let's put people in a position to have to put a $30,000 or $40,000 septic system in at our request. If that seems fair, I'm okay with it, but I think we should start with an education program.
So the education side of it, Travis, what kind of numbers would you need in there? Do you have any idea what you'd want to see in there to help you get the word out?
So I guess I don't have that today. If it's education, does that mean it's coming next year, or is it just like a brochure that's going out to people, or what?
As Jerry said, coming to a theater near you.
I heard that.
Yeah.
Through you, Mayor Martin. Travis, would this be acceptable if you sent out the letters to everyone, letting them know that this is what's gonna happen? It is happening. And then going forward from that, you can like start somewhere. I don't care if it's lakes or if it's township, but either way, both of them have to be done. Is that a possible scenario without, I know everybody is gonna flip out if there's a cost with that. So I'm just kind of curious, is it possible to start this program without the initial cost going forward?
Through you, Mr. Mayor,
Doesn't make sense.
if we were to send questionnaires out to everybody, that's fine, but if the program's not gonna go forward at some point, then I mean, we can do education letters, and there's stuff on our website, education for how to do's and don'ts for septics, that sort of stuff.
So part of the program is 10-year or older septics would be the ones that you would start with. Is that?
So I put that in there now. I mean, with that said, it doesn't mean that there's not issues with stuff that's at 10 years and newer. Like people have holding tanks out there, and holding tanks, even new ones, they fill up quick. You got to pump them. So all of a sudden, maybe a drain doesn't go into the holding tank anymore. It goes out on the ground or somewhere else, right? So there can be issues with them.
So you've done this before as far as and I don't know whether, has anybody ever started with the like, I remember this from years ago, and it wasn't very popular because nobody's going to volunteer maybe, but as part of your questionnaire and if people volunteered to have theirs tested as part of the initial education program.
That's what I was, can we, like, I don't know how they run it in North Cortha, but what if we just put it out as a volunteer program? So we ran the questionnaire, we mail it out to everybody, and then basically take what we get back. And then we could do that. I imagine that would take us probably at least a year, if not more than a year, right? And then eventually we're gonna have to work on the ones that we don't, but maybe in that time, we can figure out a way to sort of.
Okay, Travis and then Kathy.
So through you, the volunteer one, I mean, certain people that want to protect the environment are going to phone him. The one that the guy's steel tank is falling apart and he doesn't want to be there in the first place, then he's probably not going to volunteer to call in. And if we do it as a volunteer, just based on numbers that I don't know, or is it me going to go out and do the inspections, or are we going to have students come in? Because that's a different cost and time there as well, right? Whether if I'm running out chasing volunteer ones, or we have two students that we say this is where we're going in the summer, and they can catch 8 places a day that are beside each other, and we can cover off areas.
See, this is why I don't like this, because this is something this is something we never had to deal with before. This used to be on the health department, right? And now all of a sudden we're assuming the responsibility for going on to people's properties and getting into that's why, whatever. if my rant's
It's completely discretionary and brought back at council's direction. Nobody says council has to implement this program.
No, and I understand, but as you said, there's people out there that want it, others that don't, right? So it's hard in the fact that in the end, we're the ones that have to go out and do the final inspections now, right? So if something goes wrong, we can't kind of throw it back on Peterborough Public Health Lab like we used to. So that's the problem, so.
Yeah.
To Mr. Councillor Doherty's question about the letter, the students go out and find the problem, the letter goes out, the second letter goes out, then the process would be we go to orders. And then if there's no response to the orders, it does end up in court possibly, and there's legal costs.
Okay, so Kathy and then Jerry.
The only thing I was gonna say, I'm quite prepared to defer this for another year, whatever. With, as far as education, what about if Travis does presentations with the lake associations? Let's start with an education, but let's go and do talks, like town hall talks or whatever, for education purposes.
Well, I think that helps get the warning out that it's coming.
Yeah.
If you could, but, so Jerry?
No, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah.
Well, through you, Mr. Mayor, the cost up there, I think it's 43,000. That's not just in 25's budget, that's in 26, not all of it, because there's some hard costs we don't have to replace, but that's going to go over a 5 or 6 year period of whatever number. You take a 30,000, I don't care, 30,000 times 5 years, 150 grand. I'm not downplaying, I'm just saying is you have to, if we implement the program, you have to do year 2 and year 3 and year 4 and 5, you have to follow it through. And if you're going to do a voluntary system, somebody mentioned it. If I got a good septic tank and I just put it in, I'm going to send my form in.
Yeah, everybody is.
Who are we not going to hear from? Yeah.
And that's but the 10-year one, you'd probably just put aside. If they were within the last 10 years, you probably wouldn't do that inspection even, well, you could, anyway, I don't know. This is just a lot of discussion. Bob, you had a comment and then.
So through you, Mayor Martin, just to summarize, it appears there's 2 options here. If we do an education campaign, the education campaign can have 0 effect on the budget, depending how we do it, whether it's a social media posts and perhaps information in Lake Association newsletters. We could attempt to put the word out that way. And simply educating people on how to maintain, a good septic system. It's a different campaign to say this is coming next year. That's a different message. And that's a different decision of council. And if that's the decision that's made, I would just suggest to council that be prepared to enforce when there's an issue. And that needs to be front and center in case there is an issue. We will need to enforce it.
Okay.
Thank you, Drew. Just how are other comparable municipalities to us dealing with this? Do you know, like I know you've been in North Kawartha, but like say Trent Lakes or something, like do they have a program like this, or how do they deal with it? Like
Through you, Mr. Mayor, Trent Lakes has a similar program that the health unit was actually doing for them. And when they switched, now they're trying to determine whether they're going to take that over in-house or what they're going to do. Duro Dummer, I'm not sure where theirs is at. I know there's pretty vocal there for a while. Like I was in North Kawartha, and when we were doing this lake this year and then this lake next year, you actually, when they knew we were coming to that lake the next year, you got voluntary compliance. You got people applying for septic permits that knew we were coming. So it did work. There was the odd ones we had to issue orders on. Okay, but it did work.
So I think, like you said, it's new to us since November. You took this over in November. So now it's raised a few questions about when are we going to do it now that it's in our control. That being said, there is some time here to get up to speed on, like even for us, we're not 100% familiar on how this was going to roll out or what's going to be involved in it. And to get it in today, I don't know. But the education side, even if you don't say it's for next year, it's in the headlight, it's in our headlights right now, and you know, it could be, so hopefully that sparks, you know, like you say, the people that took care of it, they should keep it in mind that it's probably not going to go away. It's just when we feel that we can implement it.
Yeah, to me, we get into the same thing we're dealing with here with other issues, and that we're all these small municipalities, we're making our own kind of rules. This should come down from well, I guess probably the province, but whatever, a higher authority than this, so that we're all doing the same thing. That's why I would like to maybe put this off to have discussions with people from Trent Lakes or these other communities and see how they're dealing with it, what kind of response they're getting. Because I really don't know. I haven't got a lot of response, like especially through the winter. So, and to the mayor's point, I don't want to open up a bee's nest here by, you know, us making an announcement that we're going to do A, B, and C when that's not really what the people want. Because I know it was done in North Dakota, but I'm kind of hearing through your comments there, especially around Duro, that there might be some conflict in other communities over whether people want this or not, right? Like I know probably similar to our community, probably close to half want it and close to half don't want it. But until, you know, we can get a clear mandate here, I'm not ready to kind of move it. I like the education part of it, like people, as you said, Mr. Mayor, know it's coming, this is what it's going to be. But in terms of the actual of it, and to Councilor Doherty's point, you know, starting to say we're going to start issuing, when I start hearing issuing orders, you know, like, and just hair them back up a little bit, but.
Councilor Doherty.
It's a difficult situation for sure, but we keep referring to the lakes. They're part of our community, but that applies to the property just outside of Havelock here that goes into the Plato River. That includes Baker Road, Old School Road. It's everybody other than the people that are hooked up to the sewers, not just lake people. It's going to affect the one, and that's where you're getting probably the most complaints, because anybody that's just put a new building up and got a new septic tank approval, they are for this program right up. Because
not all of them, like some of them are looking at it as a waste of money. They've already just done their septic and we're just wasting our time. So, yeah. All right, so to move forward here, the education side of it, I don't know what the number is, or just even some flyers or like starting the talk. Well, I don't know do you need a number in there?
Yeah, through you, Mayor Martin. So it depends how council wishes to proceed with an education piece. If we do a mailer to every household affected, there's a cost to mailing that out. It's over $1 now per household. If we do it in a different way, perhaps there's no cost.
With the tax bill and things like that.
Right.
Councilor Doherty.
just to follow up, we keep referring to this is coming. Does somebody know of a piece of legislation that's coming down to immortalize this? Or is this just our feeling that it's going to happen? Because we keep referring to this is coming. And I think it's coming, but is there legislation coming out that I'm not aware of because I haven't heard anything?
Let me tell you, Councilor Doherty, I didn't say it's coming. I was not the person that
No,
said it.
I didn't.
No, okay, I'm just saying that I guess I'm trying to be proactive and start the ball rolling. And I realize it's rural and lakes. My sister just had a new one put in after 40 years on the farm. I understand this totally. So I guess if you want me to, I will make the motion. Can we please start education with this year? And we won't say it's coming because we don't know. If legislation does come, then.
So,
Well, further to that, I think maybe I was one that said it's coming because it is coming. Because just look around to our society, everything is being done, especially in our municipality. The mayor referenced it. The lakes are probably our greatest resource here in HBM. And all that's going to happen is sooner or later, one of these is going to bust. And there's going to be, there's going to be contamination in one of these lakes. And then, yeah, you finally, as the upper levels of government usually do, wait till a crisis happens before they act. Then you'll see action. But I'd be very surprised if 10 years from now, this isn't mandatory across the province.
Councilor Clement moved it or seconding, but we should really have a little bit of depending on how in depth we're going to go on the education, we might need a small number there for the admin work to get some sort of a letter out or if we're just gonna do something like Councillor Clement said with with Travis going out and doing or somebody doing a circuit there with the lake associations and any groups around, town if they need to. It's the lakes that we hear from. I don't know how many letters I've had over the years, but there's lots of people looking at this, but so I don't know. Just education.
So Bob, give me a number. What do you think? Like, I don't, Travis, would you have it 2,500?
That's a three, Mr.
44,000.
44,000. Through you, Mr. Mayor, one of the questions I had was how much was it gonna cost to mail out letters to the entire township? And I was given a number of about $7,000 for a mailing to the entire township.
Sorry.
Okay, Bev had a question.
Sorry, go ahead, Beth.
All right, through you, Mayor Martin, how many years has it been going around this is coming? How many years? Already? 5? Okay, so why are we
The question's been out there
still,
probably 15.
okay, so then why are we still not coming to a decision on getting this done?
Because we didn't control it before. We had to go through the health unit and that
But
was.
that is a separate entity from the actual septic thing. That's the source water protection.
No,
That's totally
no.
separate.
No, so the health unit did this up until this year. They did it for us.
They went out and inspected people's.
Yes, and it was $350 per property that they wanted and that squashed it. So Travis, you had.
Okay, anyway, let's go forward with this. I would think that most people do, education is a good thing, but I think most residents understand the septic system. But maybe not. So I'm okay with the education, but I would like to get this started as soon as possible. Whether the cost be put on their tax base, is that an issue? For the outside, not the inside village people being charged, because we're already being charged for our sewer and septic. And water, are we not?
No, I just said Jerry's.
Yeah. Anyway, I would just like to go forward to just move on with it. I mean, we're wasting
10,000.
people's times.
So Jerry's next and then.
Okay, go. You probably just might say what I'm gonna say, so.
Oh, no, you go ahead, so then.
I was just gonna ask about the money. I thought we were gonna do it through the tax mail.
Yeah, like that's another option. So we
Well,
don't
yeah,
have,
so what do we need 10 grand for if we're going out with the tax billings?
yeah, like it's just a administration, like, so you know what, like really. And then not be like. To do a letter to go out there and maybe Travis circulate.
Oh, I don't know, I defer to Travis, but I mean, even in his report right here, he's got it all pretty much laid out right there.
Mhm.
He's got the applications, just, you know what I mean? I don't know, maybe condense that down into a 2-page thing and throw that in there. Like that,
So through you, it was Leah's idea. She mentioned the QR code, and I guess the QR code can be linked in there.
okay, or something, exactly.
Take everybody to the website and they can see everything and share that.
I know.
Yes, Jerry.
Oh, sorry.
Councillor Dorian.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I'd just like to come back to the cost of this not being absorbed by the taxpayer, but we are going to exempt the village. Did I understood that right from you, Councillor Ledger?
Through you, Mayor Martin. Sure, if you want to come and check out my septic and water, it's in my backyard, you go ahead and do that.
You meant it. I think.
But no, you said that they shouldn't be paying the cost in town of a permit policy. Yeah, that's what I was asking about.
That's correct.
Yeah, okay. So when we do a sewer plant enlargement here for the village, how does that get paid for? Is that divided local area taxes for the village, or is that spread over the whole tax base?
I know.
Through you, Chair.
So if we were to do, say, for instance, a $10 million expansion to our treatment plant, the cost of that debt, assuming that we were incurring debt, should be borne by the rates for the village.
Yeah, that's the way it works.
Follow up then, is that what we're doing now? So you're gonna divide 10 million by 250 people in town?
Yeah, through each year. So this situation here of the whatever it is, whatever amounts chosen for non-village people. We can have a local area rate for a group of taxpayers that are getting like a specific benefit. So the village rate works well because it's contributions to the roads reserve in the village, garbage collection, but we can't have a specific rate for, say, for instance, people on the lake. So it gets a little bit murky there. Like for something like this, it would have to go on the general tax levy and general tax rates, if that makes any sense.
So, yeah, the only part of for the sewage treatment plant, the only part that the township ever paid for was that time we did that $75 levy for the septic part of the plant. Everybody in the township paid $75 per property. It wasn't very well received either, but yeah, we didn't help with the rest of it, so. Anyways, so we just need something to move past here if we're gonna you know, some sort of a, you know, like you say, putting this document into the tax bill with a QR code, saying that we've been looking at this.
So if I could just add one thing, future. So I know we had already discussed having the mailer be 2 pages instead of 1 with the tax bills, and that's great. I'm not sure at what point when you get, say, for instance, like 4 sheets there, whether the weight goes above a certain threshold and the cost does go up. Quite honestly, I don't know that, but I know at some point with so many pieces of paper and envelope, it will go up. So I'm not sure there would be 0 cost if we added a couple sheets of paper for this in the tax bills.
I just need a number or something to work with, or we can just,
Do we have to set a number? Like if this extra can like just come back?
We're not gonna know for a while
okay,
In terms of,
when the tax bill goes out.
what do you mean, what are we gonna know?
The extra postage, is that what you're asking?
Yeah.
Yeah, we're not gonna know that until we mail it out.
Okay, but I'm just saying at that point, we can't just go back and,
add a little bit.
well, yeah, we have to do that now.
Depends if you're passing budget now or not.
Well, we're not finalizing the budget.
So through you, Mr. Mayor, the girls in front told me that when we get over 3 pages, it's more. If it's a QR code, it's really just additional staff time to do.
And that's, you're okay with the QR code, right?
That's a great idea.
Okay, no, as long as, okay, you're the one running it, so. So that's what I suggested, so.
In addition to that, if it's gonna be a presentation to lake associations as well, that's no problem. That's just staff time again.
And further to that, I agree with that. I don't know if, well, presentation would be fantastic, but you know, given your time, maybe you can't make it out to everyone, but even. Whatever, if whether you or another staff member just goes out there with a bunch of the sheets, right? That maybe at the end of the meeting, sit there and talk to 4 or 5 people, yeah. Kind of get it out there so that they know. More of us is a CYA for us, so that when this actually maybe does get implemented, we can say. We tried to inform you, right? In terms of we had this information out there, so.
And I can include them in my presentation. I do most of them anyways. But anybody that asks, I go to their association meetings. I can take the papers with me or whatever. We used to do that, so that's fine. So So we'll just leave it at that then. It's just that we'll look at the education and we won't go with any of the 43,000. So,
So we have a mover and a seconder for the education program.
okay. All right, any other questions around it? All in favor? That's carried. Okay, so the next part is that the government got involved in source water.
Through you, Mr. President, next one is the one with mandatory, so no choice, we have to do the inspections on the 14 homes within the source water protection area that have sewage systems. Once every 5 years. And just looking to see where the money would come from for that. We implemented the same fee health unit had as $375 per inspection on these. And when we went to look back through the records to see how they've been charged before, it's not real clear as to why it's came from source water. So 2 options are laid out here. Either it can continue to come through source water, so 1,500 be added to the source water protection budget to cover the cost of mandatory sewage system program for the 4 that are due this year. Or we start invoicing each individual property for the 375.
So this is one in the past that because they have a septic, but they're in the village, they've had to be inspected and it's been covered. Yeah, like you say, we've done it through source water instead of billing the properties because it kind of came in after their property was already there, and I don't think they can get a septic or the sewer to that property yet. So yeah, so it's been covered with source water. I don't know, like you say, where I don't have the document, but that's
We were unable to find the motion of council or anything that gave that direction previous, so that's why we just want to start fresh here and move forward so we have it clear.
so yeah, so I got some paper to cover it. So would the motion be that could the motion be that that we continue to cover with source water?
1,500.
Yeah, either option 1 or option 2.
Yeah. Council's thought. Kathy?
It's mandatory. I'll go for option 1. Maybe continue to do like we did.
Okay, so I move to option 1. You get a seconder for that. Second by Deputy Mayor Webb. All in favor? And that's carried. Okay.
Thank you. All right.
I forget, 10 minutes. For a motion to take a 10-minute recess and come back at 10 after. Moved by Councilor Clements, second by Councilor Doherty. Favor. Very full way of cheating. All right, so pretty good timing to come back pretty well on time.
That's
So
I got it.
so I'll look for a motion that we resume. Moved by Councilor Clements, second by Deputy Mayor Webb. In favor, carried. We're back at her, and the next item on here is the fire capital overview follow-up items. All right. Oh, I feel pretty honored here this morning.
You should. Good morning, Mayor Martin and council. Where are we at here? So as far as I can remember, there was nothing with the operating budget on 49, page 49 and 50. And it was just the capital on 112, page 112, which was regarding the side-by-side. So I was directed to bring back some prices for these side-by-sides. So I did search through the internet, phone calls, and in person for these side-by-sides. I checked out Honda, Polaris, Yamaha, and CF Moto. And I received verbal prices for these. So nothing actually written in stone, but it averaged between 18 to 25,000 for what we would be looking for. As for the trailer, the same way was done through the internet, phone calls, and in person. And these were galvanized or full aluminum, price range from 3,600 to 4,800 bucks.
My recommendation would be full aluminum, but we can get into that later down the road. There for both the side by side and the trailer, keeping it at the high end, 25,000 for a side by side, $5,000 for the trailer, you're looking at 30,000. This is before taxes. The taxes on these would be approximately $4,000, which we get most of that back. And we budgeted 35,000 in the capital.
Okay, Lionel, go ahead.
Through you, Chair, if this is the rescue UTV, we've got $15,000 right now in the capital budget.
Yeah, we mentioned through you, Mayor Martin, sorry, at the last time budget meeting, we did say that you mentioned to put the full 35 in there, but I just noticed it still said 15. I got it.
Right, so there's been no motion to change it from the original budget amount to $15,000.
Here's all of them.
So right now it's at 15 and he's saying 30, 35. You need 35 or you need
Another 20, right?
Do you remember?
Right.
We said.
I'm curious, it's gonna,
I'm sorry, Jay.
yeah,
And sorry, through you, Mayor, also it was a boat, wasn't it, for $5,000 or something, that was included in the 35 or whatever we were talking about?
Yes, through you, Mayor Martin, the pontoon boat that's mysteriously disappeared. It was 20,000 and I just added the 15,000 to here, but like I said, Lionel said to just put it up to the 35 in the capital budget, put the full amount. I believe that's how it was said.
Through you, Chair, right now in the budget, we have NRS rescue boat for 5,100 and a rescue UTV for 15,000. So what we need to come to is what we're going to be spending on those two items in total to be approved.
Through you, Mayor Martin, that rescue boat is totally separate from the UTV and the pontoon. That is a totally separate boat, totally separate.
okay, so it's not part of the 30.
No.
So Kathy, for today,
So I just want to clarify something. So we have the money for the inflatable. We allowed for that. So you just need the extra for the side by side. Which we use in emergencies 5 years out in the bush or whatever.
Yes.
So I would pass a motion that we need to increase his capital by
235.
220, separate them to, not 235, just
No, rescue UTV to 35,000 from 15.
I already had that.
Yes.
Why is it already in there?
The question, right?
Mine says 35.
No, it's not in there. We didn't have a motion to change that.
I
The motion was Ray was gonna bring back a pricing.
so removing that we move that up to 35,000. There's,
a second.
do we have a seconder for that? Okay, Deputy Mayor Webb, second with a comment.
Well, if you want to do that motion for that, get a comment, a question or something else.
Oh, okay.
So if I can just ask a question through you, Mayor, so it's an increase of 20,000. That's what we're talking about. That's what,
That's fine.
okay.
Yeah.
Okay, no, that's fine. So we have 15 in there budgeted now. We're increasing the budget to 35. So it's an increase of 20, not an increase of 35.
Okay, I apologize because I kind of tuned out there, but you said you got pricing. What was the prices we got on? The last time we talked about prices between 15 and 20 grand.
There's a trailer too.
So now the trailers included in that total.
I apologize.
Price. Yes.
So
In the bill.
So this is good. So we have a mover and a seconder.
Sorry, who seconded that? Oh, okay, thank you.
Any other questions around it, around the motion? All in favor of the motion? It's carried. That. Go ahead. Yeah.
I just had a question about the compressor rate, this fill station.
Yes.
Does every fire Hall have one? Like, would Norwood have one?
Yes, they do.
Not really, maybe not a question for today, but looking ahead. So, like, say Norwood had one. Or say we had one and Norwood didn't have one, could two municipalities share one of these? Or do you each need one?
Through you, Mayor Martin, we did do that in the years past there, and it turned into just a nuisance. We'd have a big fire, we'd end up taking 30, 40 bottles over there. Now they bring somebody in on a Saturday or Sunday weekends, and and with the new training, it's easier for us because we go through, we're on actual air now. And then after training sessions, boom, we fill the bottles, we're done. We're not bothering anybody in the evenings or anything. It just worked out so much better.
Okay. We've had a few discussions and we're probably have more discussions with other townships in terms of cost savings and economies of scale and stuff like this. So but I said, anything that does come up like this, they think that maybe,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? That whether it be us in Norwood, us in North Kawartha, us and whoever might be able to share costs. Feel free to let us know. Okay.
Yeah.
So, thank you.
Okay. I remember, how big is the unit, Ray? Is it big? The filling?
The filling thing?
Like
The one I'm looking at would be 6, 7 feet long because it's all in one unit, and it would be probably 2 to 3 feet.
Okay, thanks.
All right, any other questions for Chief?
Sure, I'll have one. Ray, is this like, you don't have this right now?
The compressor?
Yes.
Yes, we do.
Oh, okay, so all the 90,000, is that just a regular maintenance of it?
A completely new unit. Ours will only do low pressure. This is it will do both, but it's for high pressure because with the NFPA, everything's going to be going to high pressure.
Thank you.
All right. The old one, is it worth anything or not?
Maybe a couple of grand.
Govdeals.com?
Yeah.
Okay,
That's where it'll go.
thank you.
All right then. Okay, so that's all, we got all of it listed under follow-up. Okay, thanks, Ray.
Thanks.
Next public works. Still hot.
Yeah.
You gonna stay and watch?
For a minute.
Cheering section, you got a cheering section. Some follow-up items.
Yes, good morning. Good morning, Mayor Martin and members of the council. I think if I remember correctly, there's 2 items. One was Union Road, and that was decided at the last meeting. And then the other one was the old Midtown installation. And I do have some updated information on that.
You have the guys sitting around the corner just so we can hear them.
That was perfect timing, Peter. The plow just went by. I think he waved too.
Yeah. So I have them in my notes here, but just a quick update. So for the Midtown property, I was going off of last year's prices for the gas, the Enbridge bill, the heat in the winter. Since then, we've installed the new garage door, the big main garage door, and our recent bill comparable to last year was cut in half. So we're down to which is great news. And it can be compared to what we were paying when we used the back of the fire hall for our heating expenses for Midtown. So that's an update, and I just wanted to bring council to notify, and if they want to move that or delete it, that's completely council's decision.
The installation part of it.
Yes, yeah.
I think
Through you, Mayor Martin, so
now they're gonna drive back and forth.
Yeah, this is gonna go on for at least 20 minutes.
Just doing it now.
So Pete and I talked about this and what we sort of thought about, instead of putting that money into Midtown, what if we put that into the extra gravel haul? The roads. for that.
What's the gravel haul at?
Right now, it is, through you, Mayor Martin, right now, it's, 113,000. And, excuse me, I'll follow up with that a little bit. Our roads need study, our current one, it states that we are, it's for at 160,000, per year. So what basis, and it's based on 4 kilometers. So it doesn't quite get us to what they're recommending with our roads need study, but it would assist us in some more gravel, so.
What's your thoughts?
At the last meeting, did Councillor Doherty not up it from, like, I thought we made a substantial increase to it last time.
52.
Yeah.
Pizza's.
Through you, Chair, gravel haul remained at 113. And just one thing to keep in mind here, so if we were to affect what Councillor had suggested, we just have to have a second part of this because the spray foam installation was budgeted to come from the reserve for roads equipment. So if we wanted to shift that 5876 to gravel haul, that'd be fine, but I guess it would be moving the source of funding to the OMPF reserve, because otherwise we'd have part of the gravel haul coming from the OMPF and part coming from the roads equipment reserve, which wouldn't make a whole lot of sense.
So the other question around the 150 that you thought was,
Well, yeah, I don't know what, I thought,
And if you remember, yeah, well, the roads need study has always said 150.
the only reason I remember is I was shocked that Councillor Doherty was adding money to the budget, so.
But
we
Well,
have
I
to
thought-
have a motion then?
well, I don't know if we, I mean, I have the same recollection, but that we've been shy on the gravel haul for the last number of years. The 113, my dime would be is we simply just run a line through the 58. If Peter's happy with that, get rid of it, and then we can look at it, use the gravel haul at a separate base, maybe most likely.
So we would need a motion to remove the 58, whatever the number was there from. Help me with this.
Yeah, spray foam.
So remove the spray foam,
Okay, just for clarification.
Okay.
We had the spray foam in there because we were parking trucks up there and they're gonna freeze, and so that's not gonna happen now. I'm just,
they were happy with the door made such a big difference that maybe it wasn't the insulation that was the problem. It was the door, the insulated door.
okay.
Cleared it all up, so.
Stuff inside.
When did we put the door on? Last year? It wasn't last week then.
In the spring or?
Yes.
I'm just wondering.
It hasn't been through a winter.
No, through you, Mayor Martin.
Obviously, the door's been on there for a year.
Yeah, the new garage door was just installed here late spring, early summer of this year, so we hadn't had any cold weather to actually see what the difference was. So I was going with the spray foam installation and off of last year's heating bills.
So it's up to council. We can remove the 58, the spray foam number from, and did you say put it into the OMPF or just remove it?
Separate. Future, no, what we essentially be doing is deleting that capital project for the spray foam. And then we'd be adding the same amount to the gravel haul, but it comes from the OMPF reserve. So it's just a switch in the reserve that would be used.
So I think Councillor Doherty's thinking, or what we were thinking, it was 150 now, like if we wanted to up it to 150, not just, that's an option too, right? Because it's OMPF. Okay, Councillor Doherty, go ahead.
No, mine actually, if you remember, my motion was simple, just eliminate it from the budget and then we can do the gravel haul and take it out.
Yep.
That was just to simplify things, that's all.
So I'll make a motion to eliminate it.
And Councillor Doherty, a second, eliminate it. All in favor? I
And
guess carried.
through your
Okay.
question, what number would we like to take it to, council? 150? Or,
I'd be-
or up the difference of the Councillor Clements, what we discussed.
Oh, no, sorry, that doesn't put you up quite enough though.
37,000 increase in the, because it's at 113 now, I believe. Is that right?
113, if we only add 5,800 to it.
Well, it'll be 32 because we get the flowers, 31 because we get 6 from that.
We lessen the money in the water here by just simply reducing and getting rid of the
Right.
38. Would start fresh on a new one. I agree with you.
Think through
So what
the-
that number though, do you want to go?
Increase it
Just
by
gonna
30.
think through, come through the chair because it's getting confusing. So instead of talking back and forth, so Lionel, you were gonna clear that up?
Future, I agree with what Councillor Doherty was saying. I think since we were clean there and got rid of the other project, it would be to add 37,000 to gravel haul from the OMPF reserve.
So that's what the motion would be, to increase the gravel haul by 37,000 from the one PF. Which would make it 150, right?
That's right.
Councilor Flagler, go ahead.
Through you, Mayor Martin, what were the costs of the gravel haul from last year? Lionel, do you have that?
Through you, Chair, I don't have the final numbers yet. We're still getting in invoices. I'm not sure if Peter knows exactly or pretty close to where we ended up, but I would imagine most of the time they use up that because they could probably use 4 or 5 times that amount, but I'll see if Peter has anything to add.
Through you, Mayor Martin, I don't have this year's numbers. I do have last year, and we were at 108,000 last year. Or the previous year, I'm sorry. So not 2024, 2023 was 108,000.
And,
Oh, but
and through you, Mayor Martin, were there issues? Like, did you find that you were skipping on some roads?
Through you, Mayor Martin, no, we made sure we had an adequate lift of gravel put on the road. It was actually the second concession south of 7 for 3.1 kilometers is what we used at 108,000 on. So we're coming in, as the roads need study says, they base it on 4 kilometers for 40,000 kilometers. 40 kilometers. 1 kilometer is 40,000. That's how they base it on. So we're coming in a little bit better than that at 35,000 a kilometer.
Okay, just one more, Jim. So through you, Mayor Martin, through you, Mayor Martin. So would it be fair to say that 120,000 for the roads would cover for this coming year?
The motion right now is, there is a mover and a second
Yes,
around the
no,
150, so.
Yeah, I'm just asking.
Through you, Mayor Martin, I would like to see it at 150,000 if that's possible. I mean, if not, then that's fine. We'll work with what council approves, but I'd like to see it at the 150,000.
Thank you, Peter.
So the only comment I have is you're confident that you'll spend it all too, like, so we have this, sometimes you know, you get all this money and then,
that's what's coming.
so that's what,
I was gonna ask.
Yeah,
I was gonna
figured
ask,
that.
yeah, how many times in the recent past have we spent $150,000 in a year on gravel?
Councilor Doherty is, well, you want,
Let's wait for the response.
Sorry, through you, Mayor Martin, we've never got to 150 because we've never had a budget for it. So we just keep it within our budget. So we bank on our roads and we can, so we pick a kilometer or 2 kilometers of a road. And we have a general rule of thumb, 3 kilometers is going to cost us roughly $100,000. So that's how we judge it to keep it in budget. So we've never spent 150,000. With that being said, we can cover almost another third with the additional money. So
so they just pick, like, cause you do like
I
east,
don't,
west, north, south, like you pick it into, you break it up into sections as far as which roads are gonna get done each year, do you not?
yeah, through you, Mayor Martin. So there is some instances that staff do. But generally, we follow the roads needs study on what they're saying needs to be
Mhm.
upgraded. That's our our Bible.
but every year no matter what limit we set, we use it all.
Very close to it. Yep.
So
Without going over.
I'm just saying that's kind of troubling because it means the higher I go, that's just gonna keep getting used. So it doesn't need to be used. what I'm getting at. If we're doing roads for around $100,000 and I'm putting an extra 50 in, I expect 50% more roads to be done, right? Not the same amount of roads with more gravel.
So the roads needs study has a number there that we work from, but we've never got to there. We've always left it light. So
I'm just troubled by the fact that, as I said, that like it should be from year to year, we should have different amounts left over there. Instead of
no, they
grinding it
work
down
to
to,
it. They work to that number. Like they could use 300,000 and
well, I understand that, but I mean, do you need it? That's what I'm saying.
So through you, Mayor Martin, to deputy, I think what maybe you're asking is, so if we're doing like 3 kilometers with 100,000, I'll just rough numbers. So if we have 150,000, we'll get to, you know, another 2 kilometers.
4.5.
Yeah, that's, if that's the question you're asking, yeah, because we like to see the same depth going on the road, like a 6-inch at least, lift 6 inches, so we're covering up the rocks and
then
taking out some gullies and.
Not only, I think you've been through this through you, Mr. Mayor. This is something that we dealt with this, I think, in the last council, and I think I was the one that made the motion to bring it down because consistently we weren't spending that money. Like there's $50,000 there in that gravel haul that wasn't being spent.
Sure.
I'm pretty sure about it because I'm the one that made the motion because we kept dumping that. And the sheet that he has this year that has all the plowing and whatnot, it was consistently on there at 150, and that's when I inquired about it, and obviously we lowered it too much maybe, but.
Yeah, through you, Mayor Martin, I do know when I first took this rollover, I think it was at 50,000. And then council, that we've got to 100,000 with the gravel haul, but I don't have those numbers with me today.
No,
sorry.
No,
Mayor, to actually go back and see what we've.
No, I want you to have what we need through you, Mr. Mayor. I want you to have what we need to get the job, right? But as I said, I don't want to just be, padding our coffers with extra tax money here because it's not our money. So
the other side would be interesting to find out years because we're working on dollar numbers. We're not working on yardage, like how many yards of gravel you're spreading. It'd be interesting to see how far that 100,000 or 150,000 is going now compared to what the costs were 5 years ago. So when you're just spending 100,000 and you get like everything else is double the cost, I don't know what the gravel is right now, but it's probably not going as far as it was. So yardage wise. So, okay, so we have a motion on the floor.
Here we repeat the motion.
So that we add $37,000 to the gravel haul from OMPF. Councilor Doherty, come.
Through that, I didn't add the OPF, but you can add that if you want. I wasn't really concerned for it. The reason we haven't spent the money on the gravel is we haven't given the money to them to do the gravel. To your point, Deputy Mayor, that's the way it's seen. Like they were spending up, and I know there's been shortages because it's pretty hard to get right to the actual level. But the roads need study, and I think the new one's the same, isn't it, Peter? Is it 150 annually?
Yes, through you, Deputy, through you, Mayor Martin, it's 160,000 is what the roads need study states. That is, they're recommending.
So we're getting close.
Yeah.
Okay.
And to Councilor Doherty's point, understood. My question to you be, are you getting many calls about there's not enough gravel on the roads?
Yeah,
I'm not.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, what happened, we're lagging behind in some.
I appreciate that. I'm not.
And through you as well is that hopefully that with a combination with the new attachment to the grader, that will make it more functional as well. And we'll get better bang, hopefully better bang for the buck on the gravel, but I don't know that for sure. It's just
Okay, so we have a mover and a seconder. All in favor of the motion? And that's carried. Okay, is there anything else there, Peter?
Yeah, through you, Mayor Martin, I think that was all my items. Yep, all of items.
Okay. All right then, so. There's nothing really with
Follow-up items, unless there's anything else.
Yeah, are there any other items that council wanted to talk about? Right now, we went through pretty well, we're doing through everything several times and worked with staff and it seems like we're coming to a number that's gonna work as far as a few little details to work out, but the numbers are in there. So All right, so I think that's it for today's budget meeting discussion, unless you have anything else to add here. I don't have anything else on my list here. Okay, all right then, so the next would be a motion to go into closed session. Under section 239 2D for personal matters of identifiable individual and section 239 2K of plan procedures for serious construction to apply to any negotiations agreed on in section 239 2C. Moved by Deputy Mayor Webb and second by Councillor Doherty. All in favor, carried. So back in open. So that's it for anything confirming bylaw. It's the confirming bylaw. So let's go to confirming bylaw. Kathy, Bev, all in favor, carried. Motion to adjourn. Motion to adjourn. Margaret, carried. Thank you. All in favor, carried.